Earl Sweatshirt, sick album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here, and I chat about this latest from Earl Sweatshirt, modern master of very gloomy, wordy, rainy day rap. He's someone that I've been on board with for years. Even his early days when he was still performing under the name Sly Tendencies, I thought there was something really special about Earl. And if you haven't heard his Kitchen Cutlery mixtape, I know it's not readily available. You can pull it up on YouTube, but if you're a fan of like anything in modern jazz rap or some early MF Doom, this is just some really great mixtape that goes underappreciated. But I originally got into him around the time of his Earl mini album, mixtape, EP, whatever you want to call it. This was around a time that I hadn't listened to hip hop or rap or anything even close to it in probably 6 years. I was at a party and somebody put on Drop from the Radical mixtape from Odd Future, and I ran home and instantly started looking up everything that Earl's name was even remotely on, whether it be the Radical mixtape, whether it be his Earl album, whether it be anything that he was touching at the time. I needed to hear it, and fast. This material from this moment in Earl's career blew my damn lid. Between his technique, his vicious performances, his lyricism, not only did it make me want to obsess over him and learn everything about the guy, it made me want to really catch up on everything I'd missed in hip-hop. And then, we know what happened to Earl the next couple of years. He went away for a while. There was the whole Free Earl movement, which sounds like, I don't know, it feels like it was forever ago. And when he came back and started putting out music again, Earl was a completely different performer. He put out his debut full-length album, Doris, which at the time actually kind of disappointed me a little. At the time, I wanted bangers and nothing but bangers, but that's not what we got here. Even if it's become this classic and very gloomy rainy day hip-hop. For me, though, I really thought his follow-up album, I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside album, was the one that really knocked it out of the park. And, first off, I hate to say it, I hate to sound like a hipster, but if you haven't listened to that album on vinyl, I implore you to do so. The mixing on the vinyl of that is ridiculous. But this is some of the most heart-wrenching and genuinely depressive hip-hop I've heard in the last 10 years. It is awesome. It also has some of my favorite Earl tracks ever, like AM Radio and Faucet and Grief. All of this was done before his Some Rap Songs album and the Feet of Clay EP that followed it up. These were like a collection of short, weird, hazy, experimental, abstract hip-hop tracks thrown together montage style, but it was really effective. It turned underground hip-hop on its head entirely and just really cemented Earl as this hero from the underground that I've always known that he could be. And leading up to this new project, I thought the singles leading up to it were really sharp, especially that one with Armand Hammer. Let's chat about this thing. This album is short, it's sweet, it's concise, it's 10 tracks, 24 minutes, and starts with Old Friend. And honestly, this starts off as a track that sounds like home for me. I love how hazy and almost psychedelic this beat comes off. I'm always going to love Earl in this atmosphere. And I love also how urgent it sounds. Watch that. I also love how urgent Earl feels, which is not something you could say too often, but it's certainly true here. I mean, Earl has become such a modern master of this sound, and this is no different. It's a mesmerizing intro that just hypes me up so much, and 2010 that follows it up is really great as well. This is completely different though. This is one of the most cosmic and far out tracks from Earl I've heard in a while. I mean, he's been doing this sort of psychedelic, hazy rap kind of thing, but this is a total new level. And Earl, as far as his performance goes, he sounds like he's on cruise control, but in the best way. I mean, his verses are so crisp. He has this real gloomy swagger to him here, which I haven't heard from him in a while, which I really love. And I mean, his technique is jaw-dropping. Then we have this album's title track, Sick. It's one of my favorite deep cuts here. I love how just unbelievably downtrodden this comes off. This is just so depressive, so tormented, so dreary. But this is par for the course from him, and I don't think that that's really a bad thing. He comes off like some gloomy poet here, and that's usually where I love hearing Earl the most. I also just love how verbose his performance is here, and the very fluid production. This track is great. Now, on an Earl album, you're usually not going to see a lot of guests, but the guests that he usually does bring to the table usually knock it out of the park. And that's no different on this album. We have Vision featuring Zelopers from Bruiser Brigade, and honestly, Zelopers sounds right at home. This track is awesome. I also love this super grandiose, very artsy beat and sample and production here. It kind of sounds like something off the first Alt J album. It's super artsy, but it sounds like it belongs in Earl's world. I honestly wish he took more risks like this here. Not only that, but I feel like beats like this continue to make Earl really come out of his shell and sound more rejuvenated than ever. And Tabula Rasa featuring Armand is just abstract gold. I love how off-kilter, very, very soulful this beat is. And Billy Woods and Elucid just sound right at home in Earl's world. But while gloomy and dreary as everything else on this album, this also is a technical onslaught of a track. It's pretty explosive at times, too. It's gritty. But more than that, this also reminds us what Earl can do with a plus 4-minute track. I mean, we haven't had anything remotely that long since like the days of Doris. A lot of this album is Earl flexing hard because honestly, the guy is on cruise control right now. He's a modern master of this sound. And I love the low-key, rainy day jazz rap of Lie as well. This actually probably is my favorite deep cut. This actually reminds me of like some of his early days, like the Earl days. It's just so obvious and so good. Now, some late album blips do throw me off in a weird way and actually make me worry about Earl. I'm not that into the lobby interlude. The beat here is fine. The production's really great as well. I love how suffocating this track is. But Earl sounds completely lost for a few minutes on the microphone, which is something that doesn't happen often. I don't think I've ever heard him this uninspired, which is really weird. Like, it is seriously weak, and I never say that. And Titanic is by far the least interesting track here. It might be the least interesting track Earl has put out in years. Dangerously so, too. This beat is dime a dozen goofy. And I mean, if you know Earl's music, you know he's not the most animated MC, and at times, you know, his very monotone, his delivery, you know, it's not for everybody, but he sounds so uninspired here, I am baffled. This sounds like a SoundCloud rapper who was like super influenced by like the early days of Odd Future, put out his very first mixtape and was kind of trying to get his sound under wraps, and maybe listen to Playboi Carti once, and that's what this sounds like. It's terrifying. It is a nightmare of a track. One of my least favorite Earl tracks probably ever. Not only that, but this album as a whole, it's weird. I mean, it's 10 tracks, it's 24 minutes long, but I just wish that I just find myself wanting more at the end of the day. I wish that, you know, the material that we get here is very good. Like I said, this is Earl on cruise control in a lot of ways, and that's not a bad thing. But I am also, at the same time, ready for Earl to take that big next artistic leap, which I know he can do. We see it here. We see it on the tracks that Zelopers and Armand show up on. Those are great. I wish we saw more risks like that. But it's still really good. Like, we get tracks like God Laughed at the end of the album. I love how wonderfully odd this track gets at times. Like, this is really weird. Like, the instrumental is completely bizarre, but it's paired up against one of Earl's most deep and personal performances here. It's really thought-provoking, it's really captivating, and really sharp. And I do like Fire in the Hole as the finale as well. I love the very soulful, bluesy instrumental through and through. It is really well done, and his performance here is one of the most tragic of this entire album. Also, the production tricks on this track are actually really crisp. I honestly wish that Earl would team up with a producer on a full-length album and like really start to click with them. Not only that, but this track has such a sense of finality to it, especially that last minute. That is some of the most emotional stuff on this entire album. For now, I really do love this as a finale. This album is still really great. I mean, if you're a fan of anything in the underground of hip-hop, Earl is still knocking it out of the park. The material that we get here, it's very, very solid. Even great for the most part. I just wish that Earl went that one extra mile. I mean, and some of those late album tracks are frightening me for the future, and I'm ready for him to take this next artistic leap. But for now, for 10 tracks, 24 minutes, hell yeah, this is worth a listen. I'm feeling a very strong 7 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.